All right, so we are going to talk about model space and paper space. I'm going to share AutoCAD drawing space. Model space is that dark gray screen where you draw everything. And the cardinal rule with AutoCAD is you always draw everything full size. So if you're drawing a gear or a pen or a stapler, it's going to be small. If you're drawing a house or an office building, it's going to be really, really big. You don't change the scale of the drawing like you would have done with hand drafting. And so in model space, everything exists full size, but paper space is if you imagine the piece of paper that you're going to print out with that object on it. How do you get a 150-foot across house to fit on a 24-inch wide piece of paper? That's where model space and paper space come in. Okay. So what that means, let me show you an example. So let's go to AutoCAD. And I'm going to open what the final example will look like. Okay, so here's a drawing sheet that if I were to measure it from side to side distance, is 23 inches side to side and 17 inches tall. If you add the half-inch invisible border around it, that makes it a 24 by 18 sheet of paper. But this is in layout, so if we notice down at the bottom, you got a white background and it says layout. It will also, on the status bar down at the bottom right corner, say paper. If I click on the model tab and go to where the, come on, oh, still in a command, okay. Now if I were to measure the distance of this floor plan, you'll see it's 474 inches by 426 inches, which tells me two things. One, it's a really big property, and two, my units are in decimals. So I'm going to type units, which brings up my drawing units. I'm going to click on it and change it to architectural. So when I do right click, recent input, nope, measure, distance, I go from corner to corner, now it's 40 feet across by 36 feet tall. Okay. So let's go back to layout right there. And somehow I fit this 40-foot across floor plan into a 24-inch piece of paper. And the way you do that is by creating what are called viewports. So when you're in layout / paper space, you get a tab at the top of the screen that you don't have when you're in model space called layout, and it's blue right there. If I jump back to model space for a second, you'll see it's not there, it disappears. That's what's called a contextual tab. It only exists in context with what you're working on. So if I click on that layout tab, you'll see layout viewports. And that's what each one of these little windows is. And you can see if I click on it and I list this, or if I, it looks like just a polygon rectangle, but it's actually a viewport. What is a viewport? It's like a drive-through window. Right now in layout paper space, I can't grab this floor plan. I can't grab these stairs. I can't grab this footing because the viewport is closed. But if I double left click inside the viewport space, all of a sudden I get a thick line around the boundary. I get my view cube up in the corner. I get top and 2D wireframe. And notice what happens to my crosshairs when they get to an edge. They disappear. They start to hide underneath. If I move my mouse outside the boundary of this dark thick line, I get an arrow. To close this window, I just double click outside. To open it, I double click inside. Now, when I double click inside, I want you to notice something. Down on the bottom, instead of paper, it's going to change to say model. So I double click here, and all of a sudden it says model. What this is what's called a floating model view. This is like you go to the Jack in the Box drive-thru and they open the drive-thru window to hand you your food. Now you can reach your hand through and grab what's on the other side. Notice also there's a little lock that's blue and the hasp is closed. What that means is if I zoom or pan, it does not affect the scale or the location of this floor plan. If this is unlocked and I zoom, oh no, I messed the whole thing up. When I zoom, notice what happens right here. I get this weird number, 0.052, blah, blah, blah. As I zoom in and out, this is how you scale things in AutoCAD. You don't change the scale of the object, you change how close it is to you. So if I zoom away, roll the wheel towards myself, it's as if I'm pulling away almost like Google Earth. If I type Z, zoom, E for extends, it makes it a little bit bigger. And if I pull down this little arrow down on this bottom, I can specify the scale factor. Scale to fit, or in this case, 1/4 inch equals a foot. So right now it says 1/4 inch equals a foot, but notice that some of the floor plan is obscured. So I press down on the wheel, whoops, and I messed up the zoom. So let's go back to that. My wheel is very finicky. So let's get this nice and centered. And instead of clicking down here to try to get 1/4 inches equals a foot, there's another way to do it. Because this is a zoom function, I type Z for zoom, enter. And notice one of the options on the zoom command line is scale. So if I click scale, it will ask me, enter a scale factor. The letter N represents the number and X is time. So if I say 2, enter, it'll make it 2 times bigger. Next to there, it says NXP, which is number times paper space. So if I want this to be scaled at 1/4 inch equals a foot, I type in 1/48 XP. And notice what happens down here. It changes to 1/4 inches equals a foot. Now, before I make a mistake, I'm going to lock that hasp. And I could lock it here. And notice when I lock it, all my zoom tools disappear. This whole palette of zoom tools, the pan, the zoom, extends, all of those, orbit, they disappear because I don't have those functions anymore. Let me double click outside of this viewport. And let me double click inside another viewport. So now you can see that the stairs are set at 3/8 equals a foot. And my footing is set at 3/4 equals a foot. So I can set different objects that are all full size at different zoom scales. So I could have a floor plan in one viewport, and I could have a zoom in on a bathroom in another viewport. I could zoom in on the kitchen in another viewport. So I can change how close and how far things are away from each other just by using my viewports. Okay, so I'm going to close this model and walk you through starting it over from scratch. Okay, so we start a new drawing. First thing you always do is do a save as, give it a name. So I'm going to call this model space, paper space, lesson 12, exercise 23-1. Okay.
Is it going to allow you to?
Yeah. So it's a brand new sheet. So the first thing I do is give it a name. Now I want to insert my drawing sheet that you created in lesson 9. Now, if you remember, I'm going to open that drawing real quick. If you remember back when you created your architectural drawing sheets and your mechanical drawing sheets as part of lesson 9, when you created your architectural sheets, you set the scale to 48. So it actually made this rectangle 48 times bigger so that it would fit around a house. So if I were to measure this from corner to corner, you'll see it's 92 feet across by 68 feet tall, which is great if I'm in model space, but is really bad if I'm in paper space. So I'm going to go back to my new drawing, model space, paper space, lesson 12. I'm going to change from my model space environment. You see the grid right now, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go in the layout. And if I see a grid in layout, if I see anything in my layout tab, it means that the computer automatically created a viewport. This is the window that peers into the model space world. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of that because it's going to confuse me. Kind of like taking a window out of a house and patching the wall with drywall. Now you've got a clean drywall surface. I'm going to go to Insert, Insert Block, Blocks from Other Drawings. Give it a second to load. Other Drawings. Okay, so here's the other drawing. So I click on that. And all you have to do is click on the name of that drawing and then move your mouse back into your current drawing surface and notice the command line at the bottom says specify insertion point. So I'm going to tell it 0, 0. And what happened? That's weird. If I look at this and I go back to the Home tab, Utilities, Measure, Distance, I inserted it. It's still that 96 feet across, except it's in decimal units. So again, I have to change my units. Architectural. Let's check our distance. 92 feet by 68 feet. So this is way too big for a piece of paper. But it's a block, so I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click on that grip, and I'm going to type scale. And I'm going to type 148, 1/48th, the fraction. Because when I drew this, I made it 48 times bigger. Now I need to shrink it down 48 times smaller. And now it's too small to see. So I zoom, enter, extends, enter. Now it's full size again. And let's check our utilities. Measure, distance, corner to corner, 1'11" by 1'5". So that would be 2 feet by 1'6" with that half-inch border around it, which is what we want. Okay, so I'm going to close the block insert dialog. Move this out of the way. Okay, now I inserted the title block as a block, not as an external reference, because I can go in and click on the title block, right click, block editor, give it a second. It's thinking. Do not explode your drawing sheet or your block. With the block editor command, there it goes. Now I'm going to pick my title block again. See how it's separated from the border? I'm going to say block editor. So now I can go in and I can edit the text. Come on, edit. It's thinking really slowly. There we go. So I'm going to say lesson 12, paper space exercise, something like that. This is in MText, so I'm going to drag it across so it's one line of text. I'm going to go, oh, you know what? That should all be capitalized. So I'm going to grab it all. And up in models, in multi-text, there's a choice between upper and lowercase. So I click uppercase. When you change the block, make sure that you click on Save Block. And then close Block Editor. So now I'm back to paper space. And I've got my title block, and I can adjust all of the other bits and pieces again by block editing. Okay, so now I'm going to go into model space. I've got a blank surface. I'm going to use the insert reference. I'm going to attach these other drawings as external references. So I can go to insert, click attach. I can also just type XR, which is XREF. Give it a second. That brings up my dialog box. Make sure that this says DWG. Click on it. And let's go find them. So CAD students, AutoCAD 2020, 36 week, featured lesson 12. And there are 3 drawings you're going to use: the floor plan, the footing, and the stair. Now with XREFs, you can insert, if you hold down Control and left click, you can insert all 3 of those at the same time. I'm going to click OK. When you do that, they all share the same insertion point. They all share the same scale, and they all share the same rotation. You want it to be an attachment, not an overlay. So I click OK, and I close this. Oh no, where is everything? You have to zoom extents. Okay, so there's my floor plan, and you'll see the grip is at 0, 0. Here's my stair, also at 0, 0. Here's my footing, also at 0, 0. And notice that the footing and the stair overlap each other. That's okay, it doesn't matter. Let's go back to layout. And we've got our blank drawing sheet. Now we're going to cut these layout windows. I click layout, and I go layout viewports. And I go to new viewport, and you've got single, 2 vertical, 2 horizontal, 3 right, which has 2 small viewports on the left and a big one on the right. I want the other way. So 3 left. Viewport spacing.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
It looks like Joy's having a hard time joining us.
Oh, I didn't know she was trying. Okay. Give me a second. I will invite her in. So let's cancel that. Let me stop sharing. Thank you. Let's go to, oh, I don't see her trying to come in. Let's see. That was probably her. Oh. Here it is. Oh, her laptop is black, as is my other screen too. I'm going to turn everything off, unplug, and try again. So I'll keep an eye out. You do too. If she can get access, let me know and I'll open the door for her.
Okay.
So for the time being, let's go back to AutoCAD. Okay. And we are going to go back to layout viewports here. And I'm going to go 3 left. And what this is going to do is going to cut 3 windows in the drywall. So when I click OK, it asks specify first corner or fit. do not hit enter, do not click fit. If you do, it's going to go from one corner of your screen to the opposite corner of your screen, not to the drawing sheet. So I'm going to click the bottom corner of that drawing sheet here. I'm going to click the other corner up here. And it's going to cut 3 identical windows. Each one of these windows shows everything that exists in model space, including the grid. So I'm going to double click in this space, and I'm going to turn the grid off. I'm going to click in this space, I'm going to turn the grid off. I'm going to click in this space, I'm going to turn the grid off. Now, way back in one of the first, probably chapter 3, it talks about layer management. And now with this viewport, I can see all 3 objects, but I don't want to see all 3 objects. The way I change that is I go to my layer properties, pull that down. And you're familiar with the light bulb, the on and off light bulb, and you're familiar with freeze or thaw in all viewports. So if I go to my floor and I freeze or thaw, it turns it off in all 3 views, if you saw that. But I don't want to do that. Next to it is freeze or thaw in current viewport only. That's what we're going to use. So right now, this is the current viewport. I want to see my floor plan, but I don't want to see the stairs and I don't want to see the footing. So here's floor dim. I'm going to keep that on. Floor notes, keep that on. Floor wall, keep that on. Foot. Remember, with external references, it gives you the file name and the layer name. I'm going to freeze it only in the current viewport. And notice it disappeared from down here, but it still exists in the other 2 viewports. I'm going to do the same thing with stair. So in this viewport, I've got this little weird line that we'll look at later, but here's just the floor plan. So I'm going to left click into the next viewport. I'm going to do the same thing. In this lower right viewport, I just want to see the stair. So I'm going to freeze in current viewport the footing. See how it disappeared down here?
Yes.
I'm going to freeze in viewport the floor. The only thing I see is the stair. I go in the upper right viewport and I repeat that process. Freeze in current viewport floor, and stair. Okay. Now, oops, I'm in the wrong viewport. So I need to bring that over here. Okay, I'm gonna be in there. I'm gonna zoom out, and my wheel is really sensitive, so I'm gonna do my zoom scale 1/48 fraction XP times paper. And I'm going to use the pan command, so I'm not messing with my wheel. I'm going to pull it over a little bit so I can see this edge, but notice that everything's obscured on the other side. If I hit escape, I'm going to lock the viewport so I don't mess up the scale. But now I need to enlarge the boundary of this viewport so I can see the whole object. Well, that's a simple stretch command. And if you remember, the stretch command is always a crossing window. And I'm going to stretch this wall, and I'm going to stretch this wall. So I click stretch, left click to start my stretch box, move from right to left so I have a crossing window. Anything that is completely enclosed in that field will move, and anything that I crisscross across will stretch. So I'm just going to pick some point in space. I'm going to make sure I pick out here just in case my object snaps wrong, because they could snap to the wrong place. So I pick a point in space and then I just kind of drag it. Now notice ortho's off, so I'm going to turn ortho on. And I'm going to just drag it, eyeball it. All right, just like that. Now, I'm going to double click in the stair viewport. I'm going to pan over so it's above my title block. I'm going to zoom, scale. This is supposed to be 3/8, which is 1/32 XP. I'm going to pan over and notice it's obscured too. So I'm going to lock the viewport. I'm going to go into paper space. I'm going to stretch across these two windows up a little bit more. So I repeat that command. Stretch it a little bit more, maybe even a little bit more. Stretch. All right, there we go. So now I'm going to go into my footing. I'm going to pan over, and there's that weird line again. I'm going to zoom, scale 1/16 XP. I'm going to pan so that it just fits. Double click outside and lock the viewport. Let's see. There it is, lock the viewport. Now, if I'm in paper space, you can also lock the viewport by going to the Layout tab at the top, and you'll see a command lock. So if I click that and I say lock, it will ask me to select an object. The objects that exist when you're in paper space is the viewport. So you can click it that way. If I'm inside the viewport, I can also right click. All right.
Looks like someone keeps trying to talk.
Oh, that might be Joy.
You talk.
There you are. Hi there.
I'm only on by phone. Unfortunately, I can't get. I'm trying to download Zoom, but it seems like every time I have to go to the Apple Store, I have to reset my password. It's just none of the passwords are working. So.
Oh no,
I'm trying to get Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just frustrated. I'm trying to get
sorry.
Zoom on another device besides the laptop. But anyway, don't mind me. I'll just listen.
Okay.
It's it'll come back to me when I can see it on my computer. I mean, I've got my my handout and everything, so it's just
Okay. Good.
I'm just frustrated with it.
Now.
It's never happened to me before with this laptop.
Oh no,
this is the first
I'm
time
sorry.
Yeah, I can't
Now
believe
I made a mistake when I created my viewports. I created them on the 0 layer. You don't want to do that because you want to turn these lines off. And if I turn off my 0 layer, a whole bunch of things could disappear, like my whole title block. So I'm going to fix that mistake. I'm going to go to my layer properties. I'm going to create a new layer called viewport. And I'm going to give it a different color just so visually I have a cue that it's actually did what I wanted to. So close that. I'm going to grab all 3 of these viewports and change them from the 0 layer to the viewport layer. I know it worked because they all turn green. Now, if I turn off the viewport layer, I get all 3 of my images as if they're right next to each other. Now, let me stop sharing this and share the handout again, because there's a piece in here that is really, really important. What should be drawn in paper space? The following a list of entities which are typically drawn in paper space. All other entities should be drawn in model space. The viewports, the sheet border and title, which is what we've got so far, individual drawing titles, scales, and north arrows. That's what I want to look at. Drawing titles and scales. So if we go back to AutoCAD. Right now, these aren't labeled. If I go into model space and I add some text, and I'm going to use single line text, and I'm going to write something right here. Now, this is a big house, so I got to make my text tall. So I'm going to say it's 12 inches tall. Say 9 inches. Rotation 0, and I'm going to say floor plan. Scale 1/4 inch equals 1 foot 0 inches. Enter, enter. Now, I'm going to copy this because I can use the same text over and over again. Just edit it. So I'm going to do one for the stair and one for the footing. Double click on it, say stair, scale 3/8, footing, scale 3/4. Okay, everything looks fine, right? Except when I go to layout, watch what happens to the text. Up here, it's huge. Here, it's a different size, and here, it's tiny, because the text is zooming along with the object that is in that viewport. You do not want to do that. The only thing that should zoom with the viewport are those things that are intimately connected to that object. So on the floor plan, it would be the dimensions. If I wanted to add room names, copy this. So I say bedroom, or try to spell it right. Living room. But then I'm also going to delete these. And then I'm going to go to layout. And you can see that the scale of that text is consistent with the floor plan. So jumping back to the handout, reminding you, individual drawing titles, scales, and north arrows should be in paper space. So let's stop sharing that for a second. Go back, share this. Okay, so in paper space / layout 1, we're going to go to annotate, single line text, pick a point, should be 1/4 inch tall, rotation 0, and I say floor plan, scale, colon, 1/4 equals 1 foot 0 inches. Enter, enter. Okay, and it looks pretty good. I could do that as one line of text. I could do it as 2 lines of text. In fact, let's change this. I don't know if you've used this tool, Express Tools. There's a button called Convert to MText, text to MText. So I'm going to pick first line, second line, enter. Now it's MText, so I can drag it out. So it's one line, double click. Oops. There we go. I'm going to underline floor plan only. Okay. Now, since I'm in paper space, I can take this piece of text and copy it. And edit it. Footing scale is 3/4 equals a foot. Move this down a little bit. Stair, 3/8. And let's turn off the viewport. Now, the other thing that you would add if you're dealing with a floor plan in architectural drafting is a north arrow, because on a site plan, you always show the property, the house on the property with true north. But when you draw the actual floor plan on a drawing sheet, you always want the front of the house to be at the bottom. So I'm going to go to the design center. And I'm going to try to remember where everything is. Folders. Here we go. Sample. ENUS. Design Center. And I think it's under landscaping. Let's see. Yep, there's the north arrow. So I'm just going to drag that over. Oh my God, it's huge. I'm going to scale this down 1,000,000 times. Oh, that was a little too small. And now I can just rotate this. Rotate. And I can point it whatever direction I need to point it so that who's ever reading these plans knows which way north is. So this is what this project should look like when it's finished. You're going to have 3 viewports with invisible edges. You're going to have a title block. You're going to have a drawing sheet. And the title block and the drawing sheet should be one block. It should not be exploded. Remember, to edit it, you could either double click and go to block editor. Then double click again, go to block editor and edit it. So always use capital letters. I'm not going to edit the whole thing. Just remember, always hit save block before you exit, or it won't save those changes. So there you can see the edit changes. You can see all 3 objects. Now there's one last thing I want to show you. Let's go back to model space. Let's go see it in, yeah. In model space, if I turn off the stair layer, see this weird line here. What is that? What is that? Don't know. Let's click on it. What happens? As soon as I click on it, I get my X reference tools. That means that this line exists in the X reference of one of these 3 objects, the floor plan, the stair, or the footing. So I'm going to click Open Reference. And it's going to open my stair. Okay, everything looks fine. I don't know what the problem is. Let's look at my layers. And remember, I always say when you create a new layer, give it a different color so that you can distinguish it from 0. See that right there? That's the problem. So if I change this line from 0 to stair and save, and I go back to my model space, I'll get a pop-up in the lower right corner that says the external reference has changed. If I click on it, go into model, and that line is gone because I've fixed the mistake that existed up the stream to that original drawing. So I turn my stair back on, and in fact, if I change the color, you can see that everything's right. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to undo and save because I want to leave it with the mistake. Again, jump back to my drawing with my extras in, and I get a pop-up in the bottom right corner that says my external reference has changed. So there's that mistake again. Layout, save. Now, when you email this file to me to be graded, if you just email me the file, but not the external reference drawings, the floor plan, the footing, and the stair, they will all disappear. It'll just be a blank sheet with error messages saying that it cannot find those 3 files. So when you email a drawing that has XREFs attached to it, you must email those XREFs as well. You send the entire package together, all the pieces. Also, do not insert the drawing sheet with the title block as an external reference, because when you make the changes to the text, it's going to change the original. You don't want it to. You only want it to change the copy that you inserted as a block.